everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show. It is your Monday edition, April 15th. Happy tax day, everybody. Day that leaves many of us very sad when you have to start cutting checks to old Uncle Sam. Well, hopefully it goes to places that we think serve a good purpose, like the Iron Dome in Israel, helping Israel fend off an attack from Iran, which we will talk about a little bit later on in this session. I have a couple really interesting topics to discuss. I want to go to a listener question or viewer question about the halving, so we'll start there. Update about to this week's schedule. Well, a couple things. I did actually had to make some improvements because of the sound of the construction next door. They're now going to be putting in a pool and just overall noise plus recording with Todd. I had to soundproof my studio, so it should sound a little bit quieter, less background noise. But that also means I'm going to be in the studio a lot more. So while I want to do these shows every day, I just can't do them every day, at least for the next couple of weeks. I will be gone. Thursday, Friday, we'll have no show, and I'm going to do my... I'll do shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even though I will have Kayla here recording in studio tonight, tomorrow, and on Wednesday, but I will cut away for an hour and a half to make sure you guys get your daily dose of me, the torture that comes with this program. So that's our plan out there. Again, for anybody who is new, hit that subscribe button, like button. I'm this close to 6,000 subscribers. Kind of crazy it's taken me this long to get 6,000 subscribers, but maybe in the near future, I will do my best to get more viewers on this program. Have I been to Israel? I have not been to Israel. While part of me really wants to go to Israel, there's another side of me that says, nah, I don't want to go there. You know, it's kind of like I would love to go visit Pakistan. I'd love to go visit Iraq. I'd love to go visit Iran. I think there's some amazing things to see, some fantastic people around the world. However, when you have countries that have... what's the right word I'm looking for? A proclivity towards other people not liking them or them not liking other people, and just tension makes me nervous about going to those types of places. Rather go to places I know I feel much safer in. And certainly not at this moment in time. I won't be going to Israel, but at some point I'd love to go there and go see what is down in Israel as well as just every country in the world. I'd love to visit every country in the world. All right, so let me start with our main topic for today, which is how to play this Bitcoin halving for show 899 for us. We did a show several weeks back talking about the Bitcoin halving. What is it and what does it mean? Then there's people who have asked, well, how do I trade it? How do I actually make money off of this? Well, as you guys know, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a trader, and I will tell you what I'm doing and then give you maybe a couple different perspectives on what might be some of the shocks to that system. So with that, let's start on our graphics over here and go to how to play the Bitcoin halving. Oops. Oh, great. Ruining my graphic. So first thing we have to understand with this halving thing, which of course is going to happen in just slightly over 4 days. All right. You can actually go down to the Bitcoin halving countdown. Let me bring it up here. Bitcoin halving countdown. You can actually go and see the exact time it's going to happen, and there's like a live countdown clock that I'll show you here in just a second as soon as it opens up for me. And there we go. So April 19th, it's funny because it was April 20th, but the slight change in that one. 4 days, 5 hours, 57 minutes, and 14 seconds is exactly how long it is until that next halving. So what does that all mean? Well, number one, let's just understand the mechanics behind it. For those who watch this program, you know at this point what happens. But the first thing is, people want to know whether they should just start loading the boat for Bitcoin. My quick answer to that would be no, not yet. Wait till you see kind of the things I'm going to point out and then build your plan around that. So the first piece to understand about the Bitcoin halving cycle, what it means and what the impact may be, is to look at the halving cycle itself, which is supply shock, meaning we are going to get half as much Bitcoin created every day. So supply shock, what does that mean? Well, let's talk about daily production of Bitcoin. Every 4 years, the production of this gets cut in half. And early on, there was a tremendous amount of Bitcoin created every day. There was 50 Bitcoin created every 10 minutes. Then it dropped to 25, then 12 and a half, or 12 and a half. And now we're at 6.25. Well, if you take our current cycle, which is this right here, 900 Bitcoin are created per day, we're going to see that drop. And for the next 4 years, starting on April 20th, we will only see 450 Bitcoin created per day. Now, this is an interesting thing because we have a very predictable, definitive, certain amount of Bitcoin that will be created every day. So when you go back to basic economics or basic finance and you start to look at your supply and demand curves, it's pretty clear that this supply curve has a very fixed diagram. You know, some are dynamic, you know, supply and demand curves. You guys remember that X, right? That if you increase supply, then demand will start to decrease at a certain point because, well, there's just so much of it out there, people don't want it. If you decrease supply, there's so little of it out there that a small amount of demand can really shoot prices up. Simple supply and demand equation. What makes this unique is it's the only thing that I can think of that has a completely fixed, predictable, determined supply. So now your algorithms, your programs can figure out where price may go much more effectively. That number for the next 4 years will be 450 Bitcoin per day, which means that over the next 4 years, half as many Bitcoin will be created that were in the last 4 years. So it's starting to see the supply cut and the supply cut. Now, by itself, that shouldn't be the piece that drives price. Remember, you can't just have supply as a one-dimensional factor and say that's what's driving price. You now factor in demand. And what have we been witnessing with demand is, of course, you know, the Bitcoin halving, the ETFs, the popularity circulating into it. Now you're seeing some institutions start to hold on their balance sheet. So demand is increasing as supply is dropping. That is a basic economic formula for an increase in price. Now, before you run out there and say, I'm loading the boat right now, hold on. Long term, you guys all know I'm exceptionally bullish on Bitcoin. I believe right now that with the Bitcoin that I have and none of my other investments that I have on and anything else, that I can retire happily with my Bitcoin I hold today in probably, let's say 10 years, right? 10 years completely done, and I will never have to do anything ever again. And I'll still have all my other investments as icing on the cake, but the Bitcoin alone will be enough to carry me, I believe. So the other factors that drive this. Well, number one, we had supply shock for the halving factors. Number two, there it is, miner pain. This doesn't mean taking Advil. Advil will not cure your miner pain. Miners are the ones that are really making up this network and mining Bitcoin. Now, in the past, what's happened is they have been rewarded with enough Bitcoin to offset their energy costs. You can imagine that Bitcoin miners back in the early days in 2010 were doing phenomenal. They were getting 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. Raking it in. Now, there was not a lot of value to those Bitcoin, so there's that trade-off of the price of the Bitcoin versus how many you get. At this point in time, it's the highest price we've ever seen Bitcoin going into a halving. So while the miners have been making a good amount of money over the past 4 years, all of a sudden their revenue, their money they will earn from mining Bitcoin is cut in half. Now, there's some of these miners that are not quite making it. And it doesn't look like they're doing very well for a lot of these miners. So I can bring up some miner charts here. Let's look at, there's Marathon. Wah, wah. I think that personally, I think a lot of this is factoring in what I'm talking about right now, which is these miners are going to feel some pain. Their earnings are literally going to be cut in half in just a matter of days. Marathon down 55% already from those peaks back in February. Riot. They're all going to look pretty much the same, guys. Man, Riot really falling apart right now. Riot down 53%. Hut 8. Hut 8 doing a lot better, at least in the shorter term. You can see this recent sell-off. Hut 8 is only down 40%, but off of its peak back here that was back in December, it's down 60%. So we have issues here with these miners already, and I don't believe that the pain is done. So if you're looking for buying opportunities, and we'll get there in just a second, Shinobi's best performing asset in the last 10 years too. Yeah. Yep. Last 10, last 15. Well, I guess you can't really go all the way up to 15. Well, we could get very close in it to the last 15. So what's going to happen here? If you're thinking that this halving is going to happen and immediately price surges, you're wrong. I'll show you that in just a second. What I think is going to be the big wild card that's going to change this halving versus the previous halvings is the miners are sitting on thousands of Bitcoin, right? They may be forced to sell this Bitcoin in order to fund operations, in order to raise capital and revenue for their business. So, let's say that I'm just making up numbers here. This is not a miner's balance sheet, but just as an example for you. Let's say that on average, the company's performing well, and I'm selling, let's say, I'm selling 10 of my Bitcoin a month. 10 of my Bitcoin a month to fund all the operations for my business, electricity, all that stuff, right? Now what's going to have to happen is instead of selling 10, I'm going to have to sell 20 of those Bitcoin that I already hold. So my inventory of Bitcoin is going to be depleted, and that means more Bitcoin coming into the market from a sell perspective. So now, yes, supply is dwindling overall, but we could see an influx of supply because of miners needing to sell their inventory to stem the bleeding, if you will. And then I think some of these miners are going to have to rethink their business model. Because if you're going to continue doing the exact same work you did yesterday, so let's say I'm a Bitcoin miner and it's now April 19th, I know my numbers. I know how much my electricity costs, I know how much all my maintenance costs, my servers, my rent, everything. I know all of those costs. Now all of a sudden, those costs, while they're fixed, I have my profit, my reward out of that is now cut in half. So my model might have to change here. I might have to redo some things and try to optimize it. But I think you might see some miners actually go offline if the cost to mine a Bitcoin is higher than what they are getting per Bitcoin. So that could be a big negative factor. And I'll show you the charts here in just a second. All right, Brian, who's one of my crypto faves out here. What's he got to say? UK is allowing professionals to trade Bitcoin and ETN soon. Good. That's another positive piece. You don't. There's no spot Bitcoin ETF in the UK yet, Brian. I thought there was. I hope we also have ETFs available so I can get my pensions, but my government doesn't understand. There you go. So I guess you answered my question right there. Well, hopefully what happens is, the British government sees that they're going to be one of the last countries out there that have a spot Bitcoin ETF. The move by the U.S., I think, was a pretty bold one to the entire world. Like, okay, the U.S., which is the major financial powerhouse of the world, finally did it. Okay, now you have the green light. So hopefully you'll get them over there in the U.K. soon. So keep that in mind. You've got the supply shock, which is supply of Bitcoin decreasing. That's a very bullish sign for the market. You have the miner pain, which in my opinion could be a major factor. And I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I do believe it leads to some selling in the coming weeks. And then finally, we'll look at media attention. Now, of course, everybody's talking about the halving. Even people have no idea what the halving is or any of that relevant information. Okay, great. Learn about it, understand the mechanics of it. But let's be careful what we want to do here. If you're a short-term trader, you're a swing trader, playing it for a couple days, couple weeks, and you're thinking, man, load that boat before April 20th and you're going to kill it, I think you might be wrong there. I think that there could be more downside movement here for Bitcoin over the coming weeks because of miners unloading their position, people taking some profits before the halving. And I'll show you some charts here. Check this one out. This will show you Bitcoin since not inception, really. It's really Bitcoin since they started tracking price. It started back here in January of 2009, but there was no market for Bitcoin. It really didn't start seeing anything until late 2009 into early 2010. You can see just a phenomenal improvement here. Now, every vertical red line you see on this chart represents a halving. Let's go back to the first one, which is right here. You see that red one that happened back in 2012. Did it go up immediately after the halving? No. It went sideways for a couple of weeks, and then it had a just ballistic move. Okay, great. But remember, it did go sideways. Our second one, which happened in 2016, notice what happened there. It actually sold off immediately after the halving, right? Immediately after the halving, and then for it looks like 6 to 8 months, slowly creeped up, but it didn't have its ballistic move till 2017, which was at that point like 6 to 8 months later after the halving. But wait, what's the last one tell us? Here's the previous one. And notice that when the halving happened in 2020, Bitcoin didn't go anywhere. It really just went sideways for like 6 months, and then it went parabolic. Now, what makes this time different, if you look at this current chart here, is we're coming right into the halving on the right-hand side. We're at all-time highs. We've never had that before in the halving cycle. So yes, this is a different halving cycle. But my argument is that the halving itself is not the event that vaults Bitcoin. Now, what is that event that vaults Bitcoin? Hell if I know. I have sat there and I've dug into this stuff deeply. It's like, why does it, when the supply shock hits the system, right? When Bitcoin's current production gets cut in half, why is it that it takes like 3, 6, maybe 8 months, and then the parabolic move happens? I can't explain that. And I think that what's going to happen, and you guys know my thoughts on this, I think that the halving will help. I think it'll go slow for the next 3 to 6 months. But by the time we get into September, October, November, then I think things will really start to pick up price-wise. I think you'll really see it go parabolic the year in 2025. Main reason, in my opinion, I believe, is because of political change and more acceptance of Bitcoin. Not necessarily crypto as a whole, but of Bitcoin as a store of value payment network. So to answer the question of, how do I play it, how do I buy it? If you're a short-term trader, I would expect there to be some good volatility as we've experienced over the past 72 hours. It was a crazy weekend for Bitcoin. As a long-term investor, I think it's a buy the dip. I think someone here mentioned buy the dips. I think that's really the important part here, is to understand your time horizon. As you guys know, I am going to be holding till probably, I've been saying till November of 2025. I'm going to move that up till probably September, October, but sometime late next year, I will sell all of my holdings and I will sit on a sideline for 1 year, right? I won't do, it's going to be painful for me, but I'm not going to do anything in crypto for a year, maybe a little bit of active trading, but not for 1 year until 2026. And then I will take my gains and load it all back into crypto and take it from there. So that's my stance on the Bitcoin halving and how to play it. If you're like me, who cares? Just sit, relax, don't worry about it. If you're short-term active traders, I would say you probably want to hold on. I think you can get your buying opportunities here a bit lower. We can bring up that Bitcoin chart 1 second as I bring it up here. I mean, you've got a fairly interesting picture. We have this ascending triangle that I could show you in the futures, but it really isn't showing any strength right now. It's actually showing some weakness. We're coming back down to those lows that we saw back from mid-March. I'll put a horizontal line right here. These lows, which we came into over the weekend, right around 61 or 60, call right around 61,000. Those become really important levels, and we will see if we can get below those. I hate to say it, but I actually think we will get below those in the next few weeks. I think the miners are going to actually end up pushing this down a little bit lower, but I think 50 would kind of be that ultimate stopping point. Now, going forward, you guys all know my target. I have mentioned this many times. I will show you my target on this chart. My target is up here at 250. So I do believe that there is a big run to happen, but I don't think that that's going to happen right away. If I had to draw this and make it look like a price chart, here's where kind of my forecast of what Bitcoin's going to look like. I think you're going to see it do, let me go here and go to the repeat, lock that on. We're going to go, I think you're going to see something like this. Come on, Merlin. Okay, and then I think you start to see that. So I think you're going to get a lot of chop over the next 6 months. I think it's going to be kind of messy, a little bit choppy, and then we get the real big, not maybe 6 months, maybe let's say 3 months, and then I think we'll get to the real peak here, which would be around 250. 375 was actually my other target, but I kind of had two different numbers I was working with, two different formulas, and the median between those two was 250, which I think is a fairly logical, and I don't even think a lofty goal to get to by 2025. Okay, let me see. I'm curious, what does the halving and drop potentially do to MicroStrategy? Well, remember, Lisa, what it would mean is MicroStrategy still has the same amount of Bitcoin, but there's fewer coming into the marketplace. So it doesn't necessarily change their position, other than it makes their quantity of Bitcoin that they have much more dominant, right? Because if you had a continual for the rest of time, 900 Bitcoin created per day, okay, well then it might be easy to start accumulate more and more and more. It's going to be harder to accumulate more and more because there's less of it in the open market. So to get, MicroStrategy to the 200,000 mark or 300,000 Bitcoin level is going to be incredibly difficult going forward. And if Michael Saylor continues doing what he's doing, which is buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, remember, he's going to be going to the open market, which has fewer Bitcoin than it will have had the day before. Therefore, that should drive prices up. There's a really good question in here, and I'm going to try to go through these real quick. If there's questions that you want me directly to answer, just put a couple question marks before your question so I know which one, because sometimes there's a lot of chat and I won't get a chance to get to them all. But let me see what I got here. Let me go back here. Man, you guys are chatting up today. I love it. What's your take on the claim that Bitcoin ETF will change the dynamic of the bull run, with new buyers being more prone to panic selling thanks to amazing content? No problem, MT. My take on that is I don't believe it's going to be that much of a factor. I don't think you're going to get the panic buying and selling as the media is making it out to believe. I believe you're going to get people like Shinobi Brian here, who's saying, I want to put some in my retirement accounts, and that doorway has just opened. So you look at 300 million Americans, well, we have 360 million Americans. Not all of them have a retirement account, but let's say we take 200 million Americans. A little bit over half of the population has some form of retirement vehicle. And I'm not saying that 200 million Americans want to be loading Bitcoin in their portfolio. But do we have a couple 100,000 Americans who would happily and eagerly and aggressively put Bitcoin in their retirement account? You bet. Do we have 1 million Americans? Do we have 10 million Americans who are thinking about putting Bitcoin in their retirement accounts? Just that amount of people, well, maybe I'll put a little bit of Bitcoin in my 401k or my IRA if I can. That now goes further out to driving demand. You've opened this floodgates to demand, which I think will slowly start to grow over time as people become much more comfortable. And again, media will precipitate this narrative of Bitcoin. And I think that will reach more and more people. You may have seen the, I don't know if you guys saw it today, Coinbase did a great video on the halving, and so did Kraken, right? Both of our major exchanges in the US both came out over the weekend with really cool videos talking about the halving and why Bitcoin is a good store of value and can buy you more down the road. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not worried about the panic selling. Those of us who are in crypto, damn well the real meaning of diamond hands. You don't even think about it. I mean, this weekend, you look at what happened with Bitcoin, it's like, oh, wow, I'm down 6 figures in my crypto portfolio. And it's like, so what? I don't care. I mean, it didn't even faze me whatsoever, because I know that's part of this, are these major gyrations that happen in cryptocurrency. If you've got a weak stomach, maybe crypto may not be for you at this moment in time. You have to understand that these waves can be dramatic. You might, be freaking out about a 5% slide in Tesla. Well, when you look over and your crypto drops 30 to 60% in a couple of days, that's a totally different ballgame. So I think you just have to prepare yourself for what you're getting into, which is why I tell people don't get into cryptocurrency and digital assets unless you're really ready to deal with some volatility and major price fluctuations. All right, let's see here. Sorry if I'm reading some of these. I'm going to just be going through trying to find what happened. Sharif, great question. It says, what happens when there are no more Bitcoin left to mine? What are the possible cases for the future? This is a good point. So in the year 2140, the last Bitcoin will be mined, or the last piece of a Bitcoin will be mined. It's going to be such a small piece. And I'll show you here. I have a spreadsheet that I built out, and I think I still have it up and running. All right, so here you go. So do I have, how far? I have it all the way out to 2140. So you can see in the middle column here, I'm highlighting in gray. Right, that is the Bitcoin reward, which means that for the next 4 years, and don't worry, these halving times are off. They're off. You see it started at 50, then 25, then 12. So it's getting cut in half. And we are currently at 6.25. We will drop to 3.125. And when we get all the way out here to the year 2140, there will be the last one mined. Okay, that's it. Now, over the next 4 years, there will be 656,000 Bitcoin created. Oh, my formula there. That's all we're going to see for the next 4 years. Now, someone else asked the question, what happens when we mine them all? Every time you make a transaction with Bitcoin, there are fees included. And the thinking was, and this is why I think it's such brilliance, Satoshi Nakamoto, whomever that may be, the sheer brilliance of this system, because yes, there's a lot of Bitcoin rewarded early on because no one's using it. And it starts to taper off with the assumption that over time, this will gain some adoption and more people will be using it. That means more transactions. So the more transactions, the more transaction fees are collected by the network. Now, a miner will receive Bitcoin and the mining fee, Bitcoin, which is the mining reward, as well as transaction costs. Let me bring up one real quick just so you can see it to understand what I'm talking about. But every block, there are transaction costs, and the miner that solves the block gets those rewards. So I'm over here to btc.com. I'll go to the Bitcoin Explorer. And I will go down here and I'll go to the Bitcoin Explorer and I'll just show you the latest block. Okay, I'll scroll down here. Here's the latest block. It was solved by Foundry USA. They received 7.31 Bitcoin, and it's actually somewhat high right now, I'll be honest. The fee, they're collecting a lot in fees. So I'll click on this block, which is 839,386. I will also answer another question. Someone asked, well, how does they know when the Bitcoin halving happens? The Bitcoin halving occurs every 210,000 blocks of Bitcoin that are mined. You can see right now we're at 839,386 blocks, which means that at 840,000 blocks, That's when the halving occurs. It's just a math formula, okay? So we have right now 614 blocks left till the halving. Okay, so this miner right here, Foundry USA, what they received was, I'll zoom in here. Oops, I'm trying to make it as big as possible. So here you can see the reward was 6.25 Bitcoin, right? But they also received 1 Bitcoin in transaction fees, 1.06. Now, based off current value, you know, that's close to $70,000 worth of transaction, probably $66,000 now, but that's what they would earn. So your question of what happens when there's no more reward for miners and there's no more Bitcoin being created, those miners will be getting the transaction fees. And in theory, by the year 2140, Bitcoin could be, you know, several $million per coin if it continues to get adoption. You know, in a perfect world, what would happen is Bitcoin gains adoption and becomes a global monetary system, right? And everybody around the world's using it. If there's only 21 million Bitcoin, can you imagine the price of a whole Bitcoin? I mean, it could literally be in the hundreds of millions per Bitcoin. Just throwing it out there as a hypothetical. Do I think it will happen? No, I do not. But do I think it becomes more adopted to the point that Bitcoin gets to $1 million a coin? Yeah, I think that's a very real possibility in the next decade. All right, so there, I answered a few questions. What else do I have here? So Sharif, great question. I understand that miners might sell more, but if miners go offline, doesn't that restrict supply even more bullish? Well, what happens is the network has to readjust. So every 2 weeks, the network readjusts it. The last time we saw miners leave dramatically was, I want to say 2021, when China banned their miners and the price of Bitcoin dropped significantly. So there is this feeling that if miners leave the network, the price of Bitcoin will drop, and that's been proven with price charts over time. So great comment, Infinite. What's the forecast date when all the Bitcoin will be created? 2140. Tom, good to see you, Tom. Instead of selling a rocketing asset, why not just get a business line of credit secured by Bitcoin? Miners were getting $24,000 a year ago. Bitcoin mine. You know, you mean, I'm not quite sure I get it, Tom. You're saying you could do like a Michael Saylor, which is just issue debt and buy more Bitcoin with it. I wouldn't do that. I think that's a little too risky for the average person. But if you have some disposable money that you're not worried about, Bitcoin might be a great place to park it. All right, let me see here. Who decides when the halving happened? Andres, I already answered that one. Let's see. By the dip, I heard that Canada has more restrictions than the U.S., Brian. I've been hearing that as well. They've been kind of locking it up. Where are you on BRC20s or BTC? Great for fees. If you want transactions, so basically what he's saying is you have a tokenized Bitcoin, BRC20s or ERC20 tokens. Basically, it's a general consensus on a tokenization. I rather just hold Bitcoin outright. I don't want to hold tokenized assets because you have to use a bridge to get into tokens, and a lot of times there's vulnerabilities in the smart contract code for a bridge, which is a bit more complex a discussion than normal. But I'm not a big fan of taking my Bitcoin and tokenizing it. I'd rather keep the Bitcoin. How high do the fees have to be in order for the miners to still be profitable? It's not necessarily about the fees would have to increase. If you think about right now, they're getting 6.25 Bitcoin per block. You can see it there. And all of a sudden, starting on Friday, they're going to be getting 3.125. Well, technically, they'd need at least 3 Bitcoin in fees to make it worthwhile for them. Now, the numbers I've seen have been all over the place with regards to, how much money these guys are making. I actually took some notes on this. Let me see here. If you look at, so according to Swan Bitcoin, it costs $11,000 to mine a Bitcoin. Okay, well that means they can still make good money if it's $11,000. But there's some that were like, there were some others that had much higher costs to mine a Bitcoin. I don't have them all here in front of me. I'm holding a piece of paper of my notes. But it really depends on what their business cost is, right? If I'm Riot or Marathon and I know it costs me $50,000 to mine a Bitcoin, then right now I still have $13,000 worth of profit on that Bitcoin, right? I still have 13 grand because it cost me 50, Bitcoin's worth 63, I make $13,000 profit. Okay, then I'll stay in business. But just like any commodity, if my cost is $50,000 to mine a Bitcoin and all of a sudden it drops and Bitcoin's price falls to 40, I'm going to stop operations. or I'm going to hold my Bitcoin until it's higher than what it costs me to mine it, right? And that could create more volatility and drive price up ultimately. Which level 2s are you bullish on? I'm not really into level 2s on Bitcoin. Lightning Network is the OG, but there's a bunch of different ones out there. Yeah, I'm not a big level 2 person. With Bitcoin, I'm not using it for day-to-day transactions, right? And that's all the layer 2 helps you with, is making fast transactions with your Bitcoin. I'm not concerned with that, right? I don't care about making fast transactions. My Bitcoin can stay there. Let's see. Will Bitcoin become a reserve currency? No, I don't believe so, John. I just think it's to watch a government give up, to concede their, fiat currency, which gives them the power to do all the things that they can do. There's no way. I mean, honestly, it could almost be the thing that starts wars. I read a really interesting economics paper many years ago, and I forgot who it was by, but it said, if you take away fiat currency and a government's ability to just print money at will, then we will have no wars, right? You look at what cost us so much debt. Our military complex is absolutely massive. We're talking, I think you take China, like the next, pretty much every other country, combined military expenses, ours is more. If all of a sudden we don't have the vehicle to fund that military defense structure, then we won't pick as many fights, right? We won't go over and fund bases in Pakistan and Iran and, pay for Japan's military since World War II ended. We won't be doing those types of things because we don't have the money. So you'll probably have a much more peaceful world, but, that's how you gain dominance and power, is by dominating people and putting your base in their countries. And, we can go to a whole political thing on that one at another time. Let's see. So no, I don't think it'll be the reserve currency. Shinobi says, depends on the miners you're using. Some are more efficient than others. Absolutely. Some are not using electrical, right? Some are using, methane vent off. Some are using solar. Some are using hydrothermal, geothermal. You can look at these different miners and they'll tell you, what systems they're using. But I think we could all agree. You don't have to, but I'm pretty sure you'd all agree with me that electricity costs are probably going to continue to rise. Would you say that's a safe bet, everybody, that electricity costs are probably going to continue to rise? Well, if you're a miner who's using electrical for your mining rigs, your costs are going to keep on going up. And these things are incredibly expensive. Now, do we get a revolutionary breakthrough, something like, the Blackwell chip from NVIDIA, that now I can take that and maybe mine Bitcoin and do, 1,000 times more than I could before, transactions using less electricity? And maybe in the future, technology will become much more energy efficient, much more computational throughput, and we'll mine Bitcoin faster. Great. That's fine as well. We'll see some of those innovations. But remember, the more miners that come in and the faster they can process transactions, the more difficult the mathematical puzzle for Bitcoin becomes, so that all the blocks remain at 10 minutes. If we doubled the processing power in Bitcoin today, a block of Bitcoin would be 5 minutes. The network can't handle it. It can't have that. It needs to be 10. That's the whole goal of everything, all the math behind it. So the network adjusts the complexity of the puzzle to offset new miners coming in. All right. The daily increase, let's see. I heard the U.S. debt increase recently was now almost as much as the daily defense. Yeah, I would believe that. It would not shock me at all, Shinobi. It's kind of embarrassing the money we spend, but it is what it is. Let's see. What's your opinion on Solana, Merlin? I'm a fan of Solana. I think Solana has good potential. It's number 3 in my portfolio at this point. I've been adding to it and bought a nice little chunk with my crypto students back a couple of years back at $13.90, and that's been a pretty nice one. But it solves some of the problems. It solves some of the scalability issues. The ability to do far more transactions. The costs are much cheaper. But when you have cheap costs, you open up other vulnerabilities to your crypto, and their platform is very susceptible to shutdowns. A, because of centralization, it's not truly decentralized, and B, because their cost is so cheap, it allows people to spam the network and shut it down. So I like it. It's gaining more adoption. People like it, but it's got some inherent problems as well. Okay, so I'm going to go way past due, and I've got Kayla's going to be here at 3 o'clock to record some videos. So I'm going to run through my other stuff here and wrap this one up. Let's talk about market highlights, or shall I say lowlights. I spent a little time today to try to grab this graphic for you. May not be the best, but I'll do my best to make it look good. So Sui looks like the new Solana, though. Yeah, you could say Sui or Aptos. They pretty much are the same thing. It's all done by, former Facebook, Libra, or DM developers. It's a different model. The parallel processing of SWI and Aptos is a very interesting one, and getting up to 100 and something thousand transactions per second is fantastic. But what you need most is the network effect. And unless they can get everybody to jump onto their networks, they ain't gonna make it. Right now, Ethereum is still the king, even though it's expensive. And if they fix their scalability, then Ethereum will still be the lead dog. Let's see what else I got. Design of Bitcoin is so ingenious. I think so, Lisa. I'm a math person. I love math, and the math behind Bitcoin I just find fascinating. It had such vision and foresight into what the future may hold for Bitcoin. It really is a marvel. Yeah, if I was a math professor, I'd be doing a whole class just on the math behind it. It's fantastic. So let's talk about highlights, or I should say lowlights. Obviously, today we have the attacks, or obviously over the weekend, the attacks from Iran on Israel. I mentioned back in October when Hamas attacked Israel that this could start to escalate and become much more of a problem. Now, right now, the big question is, what's the retaliation from Israel against Iran? Fingers crossed that there will be none. Right? They launched hundreds of missiles and drones. They shot down 99% of them. There were no casualties. So if I'm Israel, it's like, okay, you swung and you missed, right? I may not punch you right away, but just so you know, I'm ready. To me, that would be the smart thing to do. And of course, this was in retaliation to an attack from Israel on an Iranian building and killing some leaders. Okay, we'll see if this escalates. Of course, this is developing. You heard the U.S. basically say, if you go after Iran, you're on your own. We're not going to back you up. And I think Israel may take that to heart. If they don't have the backing of the U.S., then they'll probably be like, okay, we're kind of like the big bully behind the kid who's in the fight. And if you know that guy's going to back you up, you're okay. But if he says, hey, I'm not going to get in this fight, hopefully, I know, 3 words. Oliver, I think there's even more than that. It's pretty sad. The good news is, either Iran, and I don't believe this to be true, either Iran is incredibly stupid or they did this on purpose, because they launched with drones that apparently took like hours to get there. I mean, you're launching with a drone. I get it. You don't have loss of life as civilians, but they could easily have done it in a different way and inflicted a lot more damage. But going with very slow moving drones is probably not the way to commit a serious attack. So who knows what this was like, just to poke the bear, if you will, and see what happens. But all those wars are tests to get the U.S. I agree. I think that's really what this was, and hopefully nothing comes of it. But it does create uncertainty for the marketplaces. Number 2. Oh, no. Did you see that? The movie Civil War? I'll tell you what. I don't want to watch it. I feel bad about that movie Civil War. Oh, there was a casualty, Mike? From what I read, there were no casualties. It said not one person. So, yeah, it has been one of the most telegraphed attacks I've ever seen. Yeah, it did seem pretty obviously strange. Yep, their defense system shut it down. Yeah, that Civil War movie looks really scary. And it's scary because it is it's something that could fuel people's belief systems in the United States and start to create hatred amongst one group or area of the country. And I just think this is the wrong time to further polarize our country. We are unbelievably polarized right now, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate. And I think a movie like Civil War really just, while it's going to get a bunch of people to go watch it, I'm hoping a lot of people just don't take it too seriously and start attacking other people in different cities. So, that's unfortunate. Didn't know. From everything I read, it said not one, but I guess I was wrong. So one little girl died. That is really unfortunate. All right, let me keep going here because I have to wrap up here. I can't do an hour show, but as usual, I get talking. Number 2, Tesla layoffs. So this was an interesting one. I saw a lot of fervor around this. People freaking out because they're like, oh, every time a company announces layoffs, the prices go up. That's not true, right? Obviously, layoffs at Tesla are an economic decision. Right? Things are slowing down a little bit. Maybe they don't need these specific people, depending what their niche or job was. Not that big of a deal, in my opinion. TSLA. What it does mean is, Tesla is looking at cutting costs, and it's been bouncing off this low that we see at 160. I did sell some calls or some puts expiring Friday because I'm okay owning Tesla at 160. I sold the 160 puts today, collected I want to say 280 or 290 on those puts expiring this Friday. Taking advantage of people's fear here. Layoffs for Tesla long term are probably going to be a good thing. It is the biggest layoff they have ever done in their history. The chart does not look great. I'll be honest. I think everyone would agree that looks pretty bad. But we are coming into some lows, particularly down here where that blue line is. And I think that'll probably be a decent stopping point. Otherwise, I'll get it and just sell calls against my position. I'm okay with that one. Next on my list, that was Tesla. I wanted to just go back to, when this whole thing happened with DJT and the Trump media, blah, 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 and I've been calling it a scam. I've been calling it a fraud. It is a legit business in the sense of there is a company there. But if you look at all the numbers, it looks like a failing operation. A lot of these retail investors are going to be left holding the bag. And I took a bet. I made a bet with Mike LaRusso, who's here today. Mike said, I'll take that bet. Well, take a peek at DJT. This is falling even faster than I anticipated. You guys, I remember I made a call that said, I think in the next 30 days, this stock will be under 18. And that's when it was over 58. Right? That's a monster slide. And I thought it might be a little bit aggressive. Look at the trajectory here. I wrote here, Mike took the bet. We're going to have a frosty beverage on that one. But this thing is literally following this line that we drew. And the only reason I drew this line this way is you can see the gap up. And I actually think this line should be drawn here because it was the end of this day that we did the show. So it really should be up there, which would equate to a 75% drop in the price of DJT by April, what did I have on here? April 26th, all right? That's my deadline day for it to be below 8 at any point. It doesn't have to finish there, but it just has to get below 18 by that time, and then Mike's gonna end up buying me a beer. But man, look at this rug pull. Now, when this one first came out, guys, I said, Trump shares are locked up for a certain window of time. And there is a way around it where they could file documents and file petitions. They have to vote on it to release some of these shares and now allow them to sell, and that has been done. So now I believe it's 121 million shares that Donald Trump has that I don't know if it's been approved yet. It's in the S1 document, which is a very complex thing. He will now potentially have the ability to sell those, and you can imagine what would happen there. You're pretty sure. I think he's not going to hold on to those. Mike, you can handle one beer. I'm sure you can. We might even get two on that one. But yeah, this is a very interesting chart here. I think that the move is exactly what you would expect from a scam organization. Okay, let me sell before the deadline, exercise these warrants, and just let me out as quickly as possible because prices are falling. And I mean, it's already down since the news happened there. It is down 62%. Pretty crazy. And again, I think this will go even lower. There's nothing really supporting the price up here from a business perspective and just all the different hype and pomp and circumstance around DJT. I think it keeps on going. So yes, yep, Shinobi, it's a SPAC, but it happened when Donald Trump got kicked off of Twitter, and then somebody basically said, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's copy Twitter's model. Let's make our pages look exactly like Twitter." And we'll get Donald Trump to back it up because, I mean, Donald Trump has millions and millions and millions and millions of followers. And if he goes over to that platform, he'll bring all these people with us, and we've got this nice, simple, captive audience. We'll call it Truth Media or Truth Social, and it'll be huge. And then they immediately hooked up with a SPAC to bring this thing public. And then, in my opinion, I've been saying this early on since way back here that this was, I'll put this on a weekly so you can see the bigger picture here. But there's your SPAC, starting date. Should be around $10 where it started. It jumped up to over 170, and I think this thing's doomed. I think it'll keep on going. Yep, it's a media thing. When DJ Chips dips to zero, I'm loading the... Well, look, their numbers don't lie. They're losing money. They don't have a huge following base, and now, Twitter's just bringing in more and more people. So, all right, I had one more. And then I can wrap this thing up. Let's talk about key levels broken. Hold on a second. Merlin made a mistake. You guys may not have caught that mistake, but I created these graphics with AI. I do my best to make sure everything looks good for you guys, but I need to change this picture right here because it's gone. We'll go right there, and now I fixed it for you. This is what that chart should look like. Key levels broken to the downside, not an uptrending stock. Okay. What I meant by this is we can now go into our top 10 here and kind of run through. We had the NASDAQ here. Now here's your weekly. Let me go to a daily time frame. And I mentioned that this level at 18,000 was kind of that key line in the sand for me. We've been bouncing off of it a few times. We eclipsed that today, showing much more negativity. And I think that this line here was supposed to represent a 10% correction. So now that puts this level in play, in my opinion, which means that, you know, we're looking at somewhere around 16,800 for Bitcoin if this does have a 10% retracement. And that actually is the origin of a move to the upside back in January of this year. So this would be a very logical point for a pullback. But I think that you're going to be careful with this one because I know people are going to be buying the dip. But we've just broken some key things. Number one, you might remember, I think 2 weeks ago I talked about this. I said, you stay in this trade because the trend is to the upside. And then we broke the trend line. It's like, okay, well, we're not done. It just means that that trend line's broken. It doesn't mean we're in a downtrend. I said, what has to happen for us to be in a downtrend? It has to retest the supply zone, which it did, and then all of a sudden it has to make a new low. It officially has done that. So you can make the argument right now that the NASDAQ, as of today, just started an official downtrend. So just keep that in mind for those of you who are, you know, overtly bullish right now. I would certainly be more in a defensive posture. You know, I did a show last week saying, you know, this is the, what I say, not the beginning of the end, but the I forget what I wrote, but it was something that insinuated this market may be facing some downside movement. That is your NASDAQ, S&P. Similar picture, right? I got the exact same stuff drawn. Not only did I do that, but I've got the channel was broken back on April 4th. We retested a high, and all of a sudden now we're making new lows. So we do have a lot of different demand zones along the way, but a 10% slide from current levels, or not from current levels, from the all-time high there would be right around 4,800 for the S&P. I don't think that that's an unreasonable target to get down to 4,800 on the S&P futures. The Russell leading the charge to the downside, down another 1.43%. It has been ripping lower. I mean, the past 3 weeks have been pretty phenomenal for it. Again, I think this 1939 is my first kind of logical point to hit for the Russell. So there you have your major three indexes. Someone asked me about the Dow Jones. Dow Jones is in a similar picture, right? Let's real quick, just for Dow Jones for fun, see what does a 10% move off of all-time highs for the Dow look like. That would bring us from these peaks back here on March 21st. Looking at 10% would be right around 35,900. 35,900. So I'll put a little line there so we can have that one on the screen as well as a potential pullback point for the Dow. It does not line up with any levels. Oh, don't even start me with my damn silver. Oh yeah, it's killing me. Anyway, I'll get to that in just a second. How much time do I got left? Holy cow, you guys are just killing me. So that is key levels are broken on those major indexes, so I think that is a very telling sign. And now it's just, you know, hats need to switch here and go from overtly bullish to now I'm looking pretty bearish on these markets. And, you know, you're going into an election year, which usually people are very positive about, but you've got increasing conflict, you've got indexes breaking down, you've got the dollar index moving to the upside, really breaking aggressively. Look at your dollar index. We talked about that ascending triangle. Not only did it rip through these little red lines here, but now, I mean, it's just screaming towards the next one, 106.80. You got your 10-year, right? Your 10-year had a real great surge over the past couple weeks. We put this level on here where we said if it breaks out of this ascending triangle, there's your measured move. It's almost there, folks. So real big, you know, I just think that so much is pointing towards bearishness, and of course we could talk about the inflation data, but yeah, I think now you got to have your bearish hats on. I do have Rivian, and yeah, this one might be a damage control type of situation. Rivian just screamed down today, so I do have some at 11:30. I told myself I'd have 20K in Rivian as a total overall position, and getting to 4,000 would be my limit, and I'm going to be pretty damn close to that here soon. So my initial price there, it says 1140, it's 1131, so I'll put the line here. And I did sell the $9 puts yesterday, which I'm already down below that now significantly. So we'll see. I'm not that freaked out about it, but when you look at the long-term picture here and go back to, let's say, a weekly on this, you know, this does not look really good for Rivian. I guess one of the pieces that made me feel much more bullish in it is having, you know, ridden a Rivian and experienced the ride, the vehicle itself, and kind of the quality of the build, and seeing so many of them here in Southern California, it does make me bullish on it. But remember, markets can remain irrational longer than I can remain solvent, so I need to be very careful on this one. We'll see what happens. My options expire, those puts expire on Friday of this week. I don't think we'll be below $9, but could very well be. Bearish until postponed interest rate cut becomes a reality. Yeah, I was joking about that one today on my Twitter feed. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, do so. I'm going to try to do a lot more on social media. I really need to get more viewership to this. I mean, I have two choices. I can go and work for someone. I can just trade, which I don't like to only trade, so I want to work with someone. Or I can try to get this to the point where I actually make enough from this program to just do this only, and that would be fun as well. But seeing a lot of Rivian vehicles on the road. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, I'm gonna lose my silver too. So Jer says, you know, commenting on my SLV. Let's bring that up here. It's just phenomenal what's been going on with silver. I just can't believe it. I knew it was gonna rally. I've been bullish on silver. I told you, I think gold and silver are gonna keep on moving because of the uncertainty. I just didn't think we'd get above 23.50 by this Friday, and I was wrong. I mean, it's up massively. If we go from the price where I sold my puts at to where we are now, it's up another 12.9%. And of course, I wish I had it. Right now, I only have 8,000 SLV, but you know, 8,000, add in almost $3 per gain. I'm leaving $24,000 on the table. So that's a little frustrating, but it is what it is. I collected my premium, and I'm happy with that. So call it a day. Be done with it. That I don't know, VB. I don't know what the Italians are doing. I see one or more of the Rivians every time I'm out and about. Yeah, it's a really cool vehicle. The thing I can't stand about the Rivian are the sounds it makes. If you ever get a chance, ask someone to turn on the blinkers on a Rivian while you're in it. I don't like it. Give me a little click, click. It's this weird little knock thing. Drives me nuts. Anyway, let me wrap up here because I just don't have time to keep doing an hour show, and I got to record here in a matter of minutes. So let me bring up your economic calendar, and I'll bring up your earnings calendar as well. Let me go. 1 second. Where did it go? Okay, so here is what we've got cooking for mañana, so you guys can take a peek at that. You know, today you had retail sales numbers, which were great, came out better than expected. That was fantastic, but manufacturing still looking rather negative. For tomorrow, for Tuesday, we have building permits and housing starts for the U.S. You have tons of FOMC members speaking over the next few days, so be careful with that one. You also have Bank of England. Governor Bailey will be speaking, so that's what it is. You know, Shinobi, I didn't like him either until I got in one. When I got in there, I was like, I actually really kind of like it. It was nice. And then earnings calendar, we do have some stuff coming out in the earnings front, so I'll read off those, and then I'm going to wrap this one up. I was going to do a 30-minute show today. I just can't do it. I thought I could do a 30-minute show. Nope. Here's your earnings. Goldman Sachs crushing it, as almost every financial firm has been. Charles Schwab as well. And then for tomorrow, you've got Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson, United Health Group, Ericsson, Morgan Stanley, United Airlines, and much, much more. So there you go. That's your show for today. And talking about, you know, the Bitcoin halving, how to play it. Hopefully that helped out those of you who are curious and want to know more about Bitcoin. I do have some self-paced videos down below, but for those of you who are new, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you like it. If you want something discussed in this program for tomorrow, email me at TraderMerlin@gmail.com or comment down below any YouTube videos. I will have John Rowland on the program on Wednesday from barchart.com. We'll talk about all things markets. He's always a fun one to have on. He'll be my Wednesday guest, and then tomorrow, I have no one as a guest. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have fun, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.